National were formed in 1999 in Brooklyn, New York, and although all the members are from Cincinnati, Ohio, the band comprises five guys, four of whom are two sets of brothers, and the fifth, who's a guy called Matt Berninger, is the singer, and the frontman and the lyricist. They've released 8 studio albums, their ninth is on the way, and they've been compared to Nick Cave and Leonard Cohen. Critics apparently like them. That's real critics. Hi, my name's Dan. So this was the 8th studio album by The National, so it's the most recent to have come out at the point where I'm doing this review. There's another one due sometime, I believe, April this year. And I've come across them before, but I've not listened to this album before. I have to say I do like the aesthetics of their covers, the album art. So I'd describe this probably as alt rock. It's got that kind of slightly off kilter feel, but it's kind of indie rock. But then it's got lots of other stuff involved because it's quite grand and layered. So there's the list of musicians involved is huge. There's an orchestra and quite a lot of people playing normal band instruments that are guests, not part of the band. There's also quite an emphasis here on guest female singers. And to my mind, some of the best bits are vocal harmonies. There's a couple of tracks that start just with vocal harmonies that are very nice. What else can I say? The drums are curious. The rhythms that are used are quite unusual. There's a lot of snare rolling going on in the rhythms that is being used. And the main vocals they're not pushed and loud. They're quite melancholy and understated. It's not as melancholy, I would say, as Nick Cave or Leonard Cohen, who were mentioned in the introduction about the band. But the low voice definitely gives you it's kind of low in register, but also low in energy. And the songs are generally about life, but it's somewhat cryptic and hard to pick apart at times. So I listened twice, as I often do. So my general process is to listen once with as little background as I can find that I have, and then to do some reading, and then to listen again. I usually listen in different settings as well, different equipment, to try and get a contrast. And on this occasion, the second listen is the one where I actually got more out of it. And I would say there are two things that I think are probably true about this album. So the first one is that, so I always feel like, sometimes I feel like I want to say, if you like this kind of thing, you love this one. And that just feels like a really obvious tautological thing to say. But I think if you're into this kind of alt rock, then this could actually be a really good album because it's strongly put together. There's a lot to get into in the album, kind of to dig into. I think it could reward quite a lot of listens to it and still be finding more stuff in there and subtlety. So I think also therefore it's a grower. So it's an album that I felt it grew on me over 2 listens. So it's kind of a good indication. My favourite track is probably a track called Not in Kansas. It has some curious lyrics, but I thought it was well written and kind of nicely put together. The whole thing, I would say, is definitely quirky, but in a kind of low-key way. It's a bit of a long album, 16 tracks. It is just over an hour, and I know a lot of albums are that kind of length. It felt long, and I'm not quite sure why. Maybe it was the number of different tracks and so the number of changes between tracks. I wasn't entirely convinced by the flow of the tracks through the album. I wonder if they could have been sequenced better. But yeah, I reasonably enjoyed it. And as always, I'm interested to know what anybody else out there thinks of this album. So please do join the conversation and talk to me through the comments box. And that's it from me for now.
I am not in Kansas, I can't slow down and I can't stand it. Broadcast news into hallelujah. Hannah Darboven had a great idea. Make a list, write it down, shave your head, draw a crown, move back home.